I felt different. I felt like uh, I didn't belong, like something was not right with me. I couldn't describe it. I didn't know how to talk about it. I just didn't feel normal, I guess. And I caught you at recess or in a bathroom or walking down the hallways, I'd kick the books out of your hand and then kick your books all the way down the hallway. And then I'd laugh at you. And it just became a way of life for me that this is how I got rid of that anger was I took it out on others. When I reached high school, I ran into another group of people and they showed me a way that I could escape, that I didn't have to be John, because when I realized that I really didn't like John. I didn't want to be John. Shattered my glasses and hit me right in the eye and ruptured my eye. My eye actually was hanging down here on my cheek. Well, that was my big plan. I was going to graduate high school, join the army, go to Vietnam, get high, and kill people. That was my plan. God had another plan. I'm sitting in my townhome in the living room floor as high as I could be, uh, divorced for the third time, taking my gun, sticking it to my head, and pulling the trigger.
When I was a kid, one of my favorite TV shows was about a man who struggled with getting angry. On one episode, he told another character, "Mr. McGee, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry." Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Anger is just one letter short of danger." Mark Twain said, "Anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured." Have you ever struggled with anger? Where has that anger led you? Has it ever turned into bitterness? And has that bitterness caused you to hurt others or seek out medication from unhealthy sources? Have you ever dug deep inside yourself to see where that anger started and how you can give that anger and bitterness over to God? I want you to ask yourself these questions as our guest shares his life change story with us. I'm Eric Hutchinson, and this is the If Nothing Changes podcast. My guest today is zooming in all the way from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I can't wait for you to hear his story. So, hey, new friend, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with drugs, alcohol, and grief. My name is John.
Hey, John. Well, thank you so much for being a part of my podcast. I can't wait to hear your story. Every story has a beginning. So let's start with your beginning. Where did you grow up? Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm the second to youngest of 9 children. Uh, Number 3 passed away less than 2 weeks after being born. So basically 8 of us growing up. When I came around, there was basically 5 boys and 1 sister and mom and dad in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home.
Wow.
Yeah. There was 5 boys in the 1 bedroom. And there's pretty much a fight every night. You can't put 5 boys in one room and tell them to go to bed and go to sleep. It just doesn't happen. Uh, it was just, you touched me, you touched my stuff, whatever. It never quit. But as a child, I knew that I was loved. I wanted for nothing. I had food, I had clothes, I had love, I had shelter. Uh, I wouldn't really change my childhood for nothing. But, even in that chaos and the love, I felt different. I felt like I didn't belong, like something was not right with me. I couldn't describe it. I didn't know how to talk about it. I just didn't feel normal, I guess. And I struggled with that. And that, for me, carried right on into grade school. I struggled with reading and writing. I was put in special classes. I was held back in the 2nd grade due to an accident. My younger brother caught up with me, and this became a real resentment for me. because I was the older brother and I wasn't getting that respect because people thought we were twins and we kind of grew up in the grades together, and I didn't like that. I learned real quick that I could act out. I could get rid of that frustration and that anger by acting out. So being bigger than most everybody in the class, because I was actually held back, I became the class bully. If you made fun of me, you laughed at me, and I caught you at recess or in a bathroom or walking down the hallways, I'd kick the books out of your hand and then kick your books all the way down the hallway, and then I'd laugh at you. And it just became a way of life for me. That this is how I got rid of that anger. Was I took it out on others.
So you gave me a whole lot really quick. So so you said you were one of eight. You said nine, but one passed away quickly. So one of eight, and you said very quickly. You said you felt like that you didn't belong or whatever that was. Why do you think you felt that way? Have you ever looked back and what did your? I mean, because you had so many siblings, did you feel like your parents paid more attention to your brothers and your sister, or what? Tell me a little bit about the dynamics of your family there. What made you feel like you didn't belong?
You know, didn't happen right away. It came later as I got into sports. I really wanted my father to be there, come to practice like the other dads and parents did and come to the games. And he never did. I told him when I was going out for sports and, tried to get camaraderie built there. And he'd go, "You can do it. There's your bike. And that's how you're going to get there." It's not like I'll take you or I'll come to your practices. Uh, he never came to any of them. And that, again, for me, really began to put resentment in my life against my father that, I've seen that he did other things for the older brothers, but today I truly realized that when I came around, he was an old man. He had already spent a lifetime raising kids, working two jobs because my mom never worked. She was a full time mom. Uh, and he was tired. When he got home at night, he was tired. He wasn't going back out of the house, and I didn't see that as a kid. I just seen he doesn't care. He one didn't want to be involved in my life, and it hurt. So it just hurt, and I think that hurt just built up over the years. And the feeling different. I don't know if it was because of I struggled with reading and writing, that I didn't feel like I was smart, that I had an issue. Something was wrong with my brain. It didn't click like everybody else's, and I didn't understand why. I struggled with
Dyslexia?
yeah, thank you. I know that was in my life, and I know that was part of my reading issue, and I just never got any help with that. My parents didn't recognize it, and I didn't get any one-on-one. I didn't have any, and my time in school time was they didn't want to deal with the problem. Their problem was I'll pass it on to the next grade. So that's what kept happening to me. I just kept getting passed to the next grade, to the next. Nobody wanted to deal with the problem.
So you got held back a grade and your brother caught up to you. You were the second from the youngest and your younger brother caught up, and then all your classmates, kind of, you said, treated you guys like you were, twins or something. And
Yeah.
you felt a little bit neglected, a little bit like you felt at home. You said you kind of felt like you were left out or you were different or something, and you
Right.
didn't.
Yeah. I wasn't getting the represent that I should have thought. I thought I needed as a bigger brother. When you grow up with five brothers in one room, the order that you're in, you really want to be there. You don't want to get skipped. So, I knew I was at the bottom of the totem pole, but I wasn't the bottom of the totem pole, and I wanted people to know that. And it wasn't happening. People just assumed. A lot of people did. I mean, some people that knew us knew he was my younger brother, but majority of people really didn't know us, just assumed we were twins. And we did look a lot alike, so that didn't help either.
So it sounds to me like you became angry on the inside from that and from missing out on the school, and then your brother caught up, and it says you said you became a bully, or you started bullying others. Did that continue into your junior high, high school years? Did you continue to be the bully guy? Was that kind of your reputation, or what?
Uh, well, it did until junior high. Junior high, we kind of all got to be the same size, and I truly got involved in more sports. That's when the sports really got happening for me: football, wrestling, uh, and I learned at a very early age and time that the harder I hit somebody, the more the coach liked it. So I didn't care if you were on my team or not. If you got in front of me, I was going to run you over. And that's just the attitude I took. That everybody was my enemy. And I was going to hurt you. And it just helped me get rid of that anger and resentment that I could plow into somebody and make them pay. And it was just a temporary thing because it all came back shortly after I did it. But it was just a way to get rid of it. But then it began to build up more resentment because, like I said, then my father really not showing up and other people showing up, and it was like, man, where's my dad? You know, when I reached high school, I ran into another group of people, and they showed me a way that I could escape, that I didn't have to be John, because what I realized that I really didn't like John. I didn't want to be John. And they showed me a way with using a little bit of dope and a little bit of alcohol that I could be anybody I wanted to be. I could, just escape away reality. And that's what I did, and from first years of high school to the end of high school, it became a way of life for me every day.
So I have a question. So
Sure.
you didn't ever tell me whether or not there was any religion or faith in your family. So did your parents take you to church? Did you guys pray before dinner? I mean, was there any kind of faith in your family at all or not?
Very much so. I should have mentioned that. Yeah. We attended church on a regular basis, Sundays and Wednesdays. Went to Sunday school and church, in youth group, youth sports. Very much got involved. Uh, we did pray every night, every dinner, every meal. It was about 11. I accepted Christ as my Lord and Savior and was baptized. Um, Partially did it. Today I had realized, well, not just today, you know, but in my recovery, realized that I did it just to go along. I wanted to fit in because everybody in my youth group was doing it. So I didn't want to be the only one not being baptized or not accepting Christ as my Lord and Savior.
Did you feel like that you made that decision solely because everyone else was making that decision, or did you believe that you actually accepted Christ at that time?
I really think it was both. It was definitely, I didn't want to be left out, but I definitely believed in Christ. Now, my time or that time, to me, in church, they really weren't preaching relationship with Christ. So I didn't know anything about a working, living relationship with Christ. I just knew that there was this person, higher power, judging me for all the wrong things that I had done. So the shortly after even accepting Christ, the guilt began to pile up because I knew things I was doing was wrong. Especially once I got into high school and began to use it, I knew that this wasn't right, but it made me feel good.
So what was the gateway into the drug use for you? I mean, were you at a party and a friend just said, "Here's a joint of marijuana," or I mean, did they pass over some beer to you? I mean, what led you, that first time? Do you remember that?
Uh, Actually, the first time I believe was at school. Um, we had because it was a huge high school. So you were able to go out into the parking lot. A lot of the kids were older kids drove, so they had their own cars. So we went out and like had like a I don't know 20-minute break for lunch or something, and still eating lunch. We went out in the parking lot, and I was just hanging out with a group of people, and all of a sudden somebody fired up a joint and was just passing it around. And it was like, wow, okay, I'll just try it. I had never tried it. I knew about it, but had never tried it. And, that instant high was like, wow, this feels good. And I don't have to be John now. I can be anything I want. So it was really quick. I mean, just took one hit really sold me. Once I experienced that high, it felt so good to be away from who I was that I didn't want to lose that. I know a lot of addicts talk about always chasing that first high, that you never get back to that same feeling. And I don't think you really do, but I didn't stop not trying to get there. And I think that's the reason it really became an everyday thing.
Do you think that your parents ever knew that you were involved with drugs and that crowd? I mean, was that obvious or did you hide it pretty well?
I think I hit it pretty well, yeah, at least in school. I mean, they knew I was struggling. They see my grades. They were harping on me all the time that I needed to do better, need to buckle down. I am, I am, but I never did. Uh, Probably the only time they knew I was doing things that I shouldn't do was, I think it was my junior year. Yeah, my junior year, I decided to go out after lunch and do a joint. And I always like to get into a car, so went out to the kids' student parking lot because kids always left their cars unlocked at that time. So I found one that was unlocked. I got in, and the seat's all the way forward, so I knew it was a chick's car. So I popped the seat back, and lo and behold, there's the keys on the floor. Thinking, that's nice. So I stick it in, turn the radio on, put on rock and roll station, and fire up a joint. So I'm sitting there smoking. I'm thinking, yeah, let's just go for a little ride. This would be nice. So I did. I took off. Well, 3 joints later, I am stoned. Heading back to school because I realized, oh man, the bus is going to be there in about 20 minutes. I need to get back. So I'm heading back. I come up to a light and I'm in the left lane. There's a turn lane, and then you got your right lane. Well, the turn lane goes green, and I'm stoned. So I see green. I come off the brake and smack the back end of this car because she wasn't moving. So I just kind of pointed my finger for her to turn left. There was nobody in the left lane. Like I was going to pull over with her and exchange numbers. And when she pulled over, I took off. It's not my car. I didn't even have a license. So I took off. And lo and behold, some guy followed me and got the license number of the vehicle and went back and turned that in to the cops. So I went back to school, parked the car, got out, got on the school bus, and went home. So, I'm good. I'm safe.
And you got away with that?
Well, I thought I did.
Well, how did you get caught? I mean, you got me hanging here.
Next day, I got called down to the principal's office about halfway through the day. And so I go down there, and there's a police officer there and principal, and they're start asking me questions like where I was during these periods yesterday. And they knew I wasn't there because I didn't show up on attendance. And they had gotten a good look at me. So they already had ID'd me through the yearbook. So they said, you're going to be suspended for the rest of the year. You need to call your parents and find a way home. So, and my mom didn't drive, so I knew I couldn't spend on her. So, and dad was working, and he couldn't get a hold of him. So I got a ride home. Of course, mom sent me to my room. Said, wait till your dad gets home. So he gets home. We're in the kitchen talking. And he goes, I just don't understand. What'd you steal that car for? And nobody talked about dope because it was never, nobody seen me or caught me with it. So that was never brought up. And I just said, I don't know. I just wanted to joyride. I just wasn't thinking, I was just being stupid. And he just said, go to your room. I can't even talk to you. And that's the first time in my life that I'd gotten in trouble that I didn't get a whipping. And he didn't hesitate to use the belt on us boys. If we've been fighting or gotten in trouble, it was the belt every time. And that was, to me, showed me that I was at an age where the belt wasn't working. So so I'm in my room thinking, man, this is not going to come out good. All of a sudden, headlights come in through the window, and I open the window, look out, and it's a state trooper car pulling in. I'm thinking, yeah, this is not going to go well. Because see, they didn't know I wrecked it. Nobody knew that even had been bought up yet. They just knew I took the car and bought it back. So the state trooper shows up, and it's about 15 minutes before I get called out of the room because he's talking to my mom and dad and letting them know that not only did I steal the car, but I wrecked the car and I left the scene. So, I mean, I got like 3 felonies right there. I could have. But he had already gone to both parents, well, to the parent and to the other lady of the car, owner of the car, and got them to agree that if I paid for it to fix them, no one will press charges and it'd stay off my record. And that's what when I came out of the room, this is what he told me. Uh, wow. And still nobody talked about dope. So I wasn't talking about dope.
So
I
you took
wasn't
that
mentioning that.
deal.
Yeah, I wasn't mentioning I was high or anything. So
Wow.
that was the deal. I mean, I actually had, I'd already was working part time, but then all my money had to go to paying his bill off. I don't know. It's probably about a couple $1,000s. I mean, it wasn't tremendous, but as a young man, kid, 17-year-old, that was a lot of money. I'm paying for 2 cars to get fixed, and I don't even own a car yet.
Right. Well, did that
And
deter
again,
you from doing drugs anymore, or did you just continue on down that path?
well, you would think that would have really been a hit on me to wake up, but no, it actually accelerated a little bit because I got a little bit of being hey, I'm tough, man. I stole a car and got away with it now, you know, that I could do these things and nobody's going to catch me. I'm not going to get in trouble. Somebody's watching out for me. Whatever it was, I just had that feeling that, hey, I could do anything I want now and get away with it.
So where did
So
that lead you then? So did you graduate high school, or did you drop out, or what happened there?
I graduated high school. Like I
Okay.
said, nobody wanted to deal with the problem. Actually, I got out. I had doubled up my sophomore year on credits. So I actually had enough credits to graduate, get out of school a half semester early my senior year. So I actually graduated in January my senior year, and actually spent more time back in school from January to the time I actually graduated. But I was dealing dope then. I had actually gone into selling dope.
Okay, so I got to
Go ahead.
stop you there. So were you ever diagnosed with dyslexia in high school? I mean, did you ever find out that was the reason why you couldn't read, or you struggled with that?
No, I continued to have that problem.
But
Nobody,
no one ever your parents didn't have you diagnosed or anything like that. So you just
no,
thought that you weren't smart.
right. Yeah, I just thought my brain didn't work. That it was just the way I was born. I just had kind of, by then I accepted that that's just who I am. That nothing was going to help me or change me. And I didn't know how to press the issue. I didn't know how to take that to my parents and say, "Hey, I'm struggling. This is weird to me. I see things a little bit backwards." I never did. If I'd probably brought it up and made it an issue, they probably would have had me checked out. But by being never doing that, no one else besides me really knew I struggled. I mean, I know the teachers knew I was struggling from something, but they had no idea. I didn't try to explain it to them. They'd give me a D instead of an F, because they didn't want to deal with it. They
Wow.
didn't want to have me back another year. Nobody wanted to see me twice.
So did you go get into dealing drugs to further your addiction or to further your drug usage, or did you get into it to make money?
Both. It was a way I could have a little extra for me, plus have some cash. Another big pivotal moment in my life was my senior year. I was in another accident. I was high. My best friend and I were working at Marsh Supermarket, like a second shift. We'd unload the truck, open the packages, and mark them, with the price, and get them ready for the night crew to come in and put them up on the shelf. Well, we had a light day that day. We got done early, and like I said, we were both stoned out of our heads. So we got horse playing around with the broomstick, and we were kind of throwing it at each other, but not right at each other, mostly just to poke holes in the big boxes, the toilet paper and paper towel boxes, just having fun. We'd hide behind one and then we'd throw it at it. Well, I just happened to be looking between two boxes, and he threw it, and it came right between the two boxes. And at the time, I was wearing glasses, shattered my glasses, and it hit me right in the eye and ruptured my eye. My eye actually was hanging down here on my cheek. Yeah.
Wow.
And the whole thing was so strange because I never passed out. I was conscious the whole time. I had a white apron on. I kind of grabbed the apron and just stuck it up there to catch the blood. And I was talking the whole time. I told him, I said, man, I just lost my eye. And of course, he was kind of freaking out. No, you'll be all right. You'll be all right, man. And he takes off running and go get the manager. And they called the ambulance. And that was the only time I really passed out, was when the ambulance got there, because they didn't know what to do. So they just wrapped my entire head with gauze. So I couldn't see anything. So I kind of passed out. And next thing I remember is waking up in the ER, and the doctor's pulling the glass out of my cheek from my glasses, and it hurt so much. I jumped up tried to get up off the table, and about three nurses jump on me and say, "Don't move, don't move." And I lost the right eye. And
What a traumatic event. I mean,
yeah,
I can see how that could be a pivotal moment. But, and you said it was your senior year or?
yeah, my senior year in high school.
Okay. So, I mean, that had to take you out of school for a little while, or it had to put you out of commission for a little bit. And I mean, and then
Yeah,
you're trying to read with dyslexia with one eye, and but you somehow made it through.
yep, yeah, yeah. I just actually it kind of bolstered two things. It actually gave me a person that I could blame all my anger on, which was God. It was God's fault that this happened. He allowed it to happen, and it gave me a source of income, because Marsh gave me a big settlement because they didn't want to get sued either. So I had an income that I began to use with more and more dope every day. So it was like win-win for me, because one of the things that I talk about in my testimony was, in the era I grew up, all I seen on TV was Vietnam every night. Kill, kill, kill. Well, that was my big plan. I was going to graduate high school, join the army, go to Vietnam, get high, and kill people. That was my plan. God had another plan. God knew that I would not have made it. I would have been the guy that stepped off the helicopter in Vietnam and been dead in 10 minutes. And that's probably what would have happened. And
Yeah.
God knew it. So God said, my plan is greater than your plan. I'm going to take your right eye, and you're not going to Vietnam. Uh, I did the next thing that was expected of me after high school. I married my high school sweetheart. I thought I can't go to Vietnam. I might as well do plan B and get married. Well, I had no idea what marriage is about. I had no idea what love was about commitment, or any of that. But I just knew that that was kind of expected of me. I graduated high school, you get married, you have kids. So, that's what I did. Uh, I married my high school sweetheart. I took all that anger and all that resentment and dumped it into my marriage. She had her own baggage, but I bought a lot more baggage than she did. And I was already a full blown user at that time.
So did she
And
know about the using? Did she know about the drugs? Did she
she
participate
knew
in that
about,
as well?
she did some, but she was definitely a social thing for her. She had no idea that it was a full time job for me. And I didn't share that information with her. I became a better liar, a better sneak. I had multiple affairs because, I learned real quick that my life was all about John's happiness and whatever it took to make John happy. And if she wasn't making John happy, then I'd find somebody else that would make John happy. And that marriage lasted 3 years.
Did you have any
And
kids through that marriage or not?
no,
No. Okay.
no, again, God's hand at work. I tell people today that I truly realize in all of my using period that I never had children because God knew the choice I would make. I would make choice of drugs over kids, and I never wanted to be that person. But I would have made that choice. My kids would have went without food, without shelter, without love, so John could have drugs. So God knew that.
So what
So
happened after your 3-year marriage to her? Where were you working somewhere? Did you?
yeah, I
I
was
mean,
still working full time, uh, still using full time. Wasn't within a year. I was engaged and married a second time. This one I thought was the one that was going to work because we both used pretty heavily. But what I realized in this marriage real quick was with us both using, it was less for John. And John didn't like that. So I became a better sneak and a better liar and began to have affairs. And it was just whatever it took to make John happy. And again, that marriage lasted about 3 years. Again, it wasn't my fault. It was her fault. She was not making John happy. Uh, by then, I'd found another full time job working with a private phone company. Uh, Again, full time, loving the work. Been there a number of years. I can't remember how many years at that time, but I met a lady there, older than I was, uh, quite a bit older. Got into a relationship with her. She had 5 or 6 kids. I can't remember. I think six. I think 3 girls, 3 boys. Older ones were probably my age. I was in probably close to 35 by then. We were married. Again, she didn't use. She did drink. Social drinker. She knew I did drugs, but again, I was never honest what I was using or how much. Uh, Actually, used a number of drugs with her number two son, who was a user. Him and I used to get high all the time.
and she didn't
And
know about it.
again, no, well, she knew we did a little bit, but she didn't know what we were doing or how much. So
Were you still
uh,
dealing at the time as well, or not?
always, yeah, I never quit dealing. I just whenever I had something or I make a deal, I would make a deal. That's for sure.
Okay.
And again, you know, it was all about John. Uh, it became very clear to me that I wasn't happy, and I didn't see happiness coming out of this. So I became a better liar and a better sneak, and again had more affairs. And again, by the age of 39, I found myself divorced for the third time, and that's for me was where I reached my rock bottom. Uh, I'm sitting in my townhome in the living room floor as high as I could be, uh, divorced for the third time, taking my gun, sticking it to my head, and pulling the trigger. And I just didn't have the courage to put the bullet in. It was sitting on the coffee table in front of me. I wanted to die. I really had decided that my life was over. That I had just ruined three people's lives. I destroyed three people's lives because all of them were ugly divorces. I became a very hateful and a very angry, both physically and verbally abusive to the wives. I became that person I never wanted to be, but that's who I ended up being. Uh, Continued to use, all through that time, every day. And again, I was sitting there and I couldn't put that bullet in the gun. And God finally broke me. I broke down and I cried and I asked for, the God of my childhood to come back into my life, to save me, to take away this urge to use. And I tell people my testimony. I didn't hear a voice. I didn't see a light. I got up the next day and I used. I got up the next day and I used. I got up the third day and I used, but in that using, I had that moment of clarity where I realized, John, what you're doing has become a habit. And I no longer want to do this habit. And I am done with it. And I just made my mind up there that I was going to quit using the drugs and alcohol. And that was it. And I know today that it was the Holy Spirit had already began to work inside of me. It didn't happen in those first couple of days. It took him some time to get through that hardened heart to say, John, you really don't want to do this anymore. And I really began to just see things differently. That what I was doing was truly, truly wrong, and I no longer wanted to live that way. And today I realized that God had begun to work on the inside of me. Within the next couple of weeks of that, a few guys that I didn't even know reached out to me, contacted me, wanted to know if I want to go to lunch, wanted to talk, wanted to have coffee, even though I didn't drink coffee. I'd have a pop, but they began sharing this unconditional love that I knew nothing about, showing that they were Jesus with their hands and feet. And couldn't find out later that they were friends of my younger brother that attended his church, that he had kind of coasted into getting a hold of me. And again, today I realized, God at work. God was using these men. And slowly but surely just kept bringing me out of that shell. Again, I wasn't using. I'd put everything down. I truly hadn't began to work in a recovery program because I hadn't admitted that I had a problem yet, but I wasn't using. And this went on for I don't know a couple months. I even began to go to his church occasionally, and I met this is where my testimony, I tell people this is where I know God truly has a sense of humor. See, I had ruined three people's lives, three women's lives, and he brought this fourth woman into my life that I had met her through work. I'd known her for years through work, but I don't know, something just changed in me, and I began to see in a different light, and ended up asking her out, and she said no, and I accepted it, and that was like in March, and then May, I got this voicemail from her because I'd asked her for a bike ride because I had a Harley, and she had said no, and so in May I got this voicemail from her asking me if the ride was still available, and I said sure. Got a hold of her. We went out on a Sunday, and we ended up at Eagle Creek Park. It's a big reservoir out here in a park. We sat out on a dock for probably 3.5 hours, and I literally told her every black secret in my life, and I have never told anybody these things. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even really know her. And then she began to share her life with me. She just had recently, probably within 4 years, 5 years, I think, of us meeting, got out of a 19-year marriage where she was both physically and verbally abused, and had 3 kids and 2 grandkids. And, again, today I realized that it was God bringing 2 broken people together to begin healing. And it was just amazing, that we just kind of hit it off. And within, I don't know, I think that was May, by September, we were married. September 21st, we got married. And, in my testimony, I also share, John became a husband for the 4th time, the father, really for the first time, and a grandfather. And John wanted to use again. I was scared. I had failed at being a husband 3 times. I had no idea this would work or not, let alone being a father and a grandfather. But I didn't pick up. God was there. One thing we had decided that I had never done and she had never done, that we'd made a decision right up front that God was always going to be first in our lives. Our recovery would be second, and our family would be third. And that's the way we would live our lives.
Well, John, I know you've got more story to tell, but we're almost out of time. Was there any scripture during, your whole story here? You've got so many things. Was there any scripture that encouraged you or that means so much to you that you want to share that with the listeners?
Yeah, there's a couple big verses. It's Philippians 3:13 through 14. I am not saying that I have this all together, that I have made it, but I am well on my way, reaching out to Christ, who has so wonderfully reached out to me. Friends, don't get me wrong. By no means do I count myself an expert in all of this, but I am well on my way to reaching out to God, who has so wonderfully reached out to me. And I am off and running, and I am not turning back. And when I tell people that, I say, that's the reason I don't have a rearview mirror. What's behind me is behind me, because I cannot change my past. All I can do is make the next right decision.
John, thanks so much for sharing your life change story with us. Hey, if you are listening today and you've got some anger or bitterness or even some hurt in your past that's caused you to make some poor choices, perhaps you don't know why you're angry, but all you know is that you have hurt yourself and possibly others around you. Maybe you are finally ready to make a change. Jesus Christ can turn your anger into joy and your hurt into healing, just like he did for John. However, if nothing changes, nothing changes. See you next time. Next time on the If Nothing Changes podcast.
About halfway through that meeting, the hairs on my arms began to stand up in the back of my neck, and I was freaking out because the guy on stage was telling my life story almost word for word.
Hey, if you are still listening and you like this podcast, I want to encourage you to listen to previous episodes because they will help to inspire change in your life. Also, if you like what you hear, please leave a positive review because it helps to bring this podcast to others. But no matter what, may God bless you and may God bring positive change to your life.